Welcome to the Mentor Podcast, where the most highly motivated entrepreneurs come to get their weekly dose of financial stability with host Ron LeGrand, as well as other nationally recognized thought leaders who will teach you how to get, grow, and protect your wealth.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mentor Podcast, where we are dedicated to helping you make more money, make it faster, and keep more of it, and grow wealthy. And I have a couple of folks on the line today here who are, in fact, part of the success of a lot of our students out there because they are mentors, meaning they work with Global Publishing to mentor students once they get into our system for those who actually want help and are willing to receive it. And in fact, both of these guys run their own businesses. And I will let me introduce you guys first. I have Todd Foster from Minnesota, and I have Tony Pearl from Maryland. So welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, Ron.
Good morning.
All right. Well, Todd, let me start with you.
Sure.
Who are you? Where do you come from? And how long have you been actually in Planet Ron?
So I met you, Ron, back in August of 2013. Prior to meeting you, my background, as I've shared with you multiple times, was actually in the corporate world. I was an engineer for a number of years, never really happy in the corporate world, always looking for a way out. Wanted to run my own business, just didn't know how. And about 6 months prior to meeting you, I ended up quitting my corporate job and got into real estate as a real estate agent. And I didn't have a lot of success. In fact, I was pretty miserable at it. I was horrible at talking to people. I was shy. I was introverted. I didn't know how to approach people. I didn't have a system to follow. And then you came to town in August of 2013, and things changed drastically for us.
So let me get this straight. You are a thinker brain in a thinker brain job, didn't want to talk to people, were bashful and shy, and here you are today mentoring other people on how to talk to people. Is that right?
Yeah,
I just heard.
It's amazing how it comes full circle. It really is amazing.
All right. So what's your business look like today, Todd?
So I started out the first few years just running the business out of my house. It was just my wife and I. We've graduated. We've got an office outside of the house. We used to have 2 full-time assistants. One of them left us recently, so we're down to 1 full-time acquisitionist that helps us run our business. She helps deal with the buyers and the sellers so that my wife Alicia and I can have more time. We do anywhere from 2 to 4 deals per month or transactions. This year we're sitting at, I think we've done 35 transactions so far this year.
Wow.
Most of our business, quite honestly, is the pretty house side. We really gravitated to the pretty house business that you showed us. We do some wholesale deals here or there, but mostly we like dealing with sellers and buying properties on terms, and we like the 3 paycheck concept.
So you buy on terms and you sell on terms.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. All right, I'm going to come back to that. Tony, how about you? How long? I mean, you've been on Planet Ron a long time, as I recall. When did you first?
I have permanent residency on Planet Ron. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Before I got into Planet Ron, which, by the way, we've had the pleasure of knowing each other, Ron, since January of 2002. I still remember that first boot camp I attended. Yep. I still remember how you made. Wow. I know, man. Yeah. I'm aging like fine wine, like you. So I still remember the first time I came to that boot camp. You picked up my oh God, this is embarrassing. I had a pocket PC. I was sitting in the front row. You held it up and said, "What do you need this thing for?" And that was a wonderful way to start our friendship by roasting me in front of everybody. But I loved it. I still love you for it. It's all good. So right. I am. My name is Tony Pearl. I'm currently finding myself in Northern Virginia, previously in Maryland, over here on the East Coast. And let's see, before I got into real estate, and before I had the pleasure of knowing you, you name it, I've done it. Done the corporate world, done banking, done sales, done painting and construction. But what I was doing for quite some time before I found you was I was actually a ballroom and Latin dance instructor and competitor.
Nice.
So, yeah, that was a lot of fun.
So you're still single, aren't you?
Oh, huh? Well, no, I'm currently engaged to a lovely lady, and we live together, and my 2 sons, Vincent and Anthony, also live with us.
Okay. Well, you're still single. So I was going to tell
Technically,
you, if you want us to find you a wife, we could, but it looks like you got that under control already. So what do you do in your own business today, Tony? I know you live in a high dollar area, don't you?
Oh God, yes, it's crazy. It's crazy. The median house price here in some parts of the country, it'll buy you a mansion, but the median house price here is around 400,000, and quite frankly, that's going to get you a townhouse or a condo if you're lucky in this area. Right. So I currently find myself gravitating and doing the pretty house business. I occasionally still wholesale deals. I've done plenty of those. Sometimes I find local investors who call me up just from various things that I have out there, various resources that I have in the market. And they find me and they don't know what to do with the wholesale deal. They try to sell it to me, and we wind up co-wholesaling a deal on occasion if I'm doing the ugly houses. But oftentimes I find people that don't know what to do or how to handle the pretty house business. So I work with them on that. Sometimes we partner up with local investors. Sometimes I have other marketing things in place that bring pretty houses to me. And just like Todd said, I like the 3 paycheck approach to things. I love getting multiple paychecks, passive income, just like you taught me.
So both of you are looking for and acquiring the golden geese that keep on paying you years after you get the deal done, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Quack,
well,
quack.
I'd like for both of you to think back. So when you first came in, went to your first boot camp, was your first boot camp in 2002, Tony?
Yes, sir. Well, your first boot camp with you was. I did a few more before that from another system, and quite frankly, I was more confused when I finished those than when I started. One thing I got to say, they make offers, but they never show you how. The first day I was with you before lunch, you showed us exactly how to do that. My mind was blown, and that's when I knew you were the man.
Well, thank you, sir. But back then, it was a totally different boot camp than we do nowadays. Todd's first one was more related to what we do, but frankly, they're getting better every time we do them, and they're different. In fact, they change consistently and constantly because I keep adding new stuff. So back when, if you can remember that far back, Tony, how long did it take you to do your first deal? Do you remember?
I did one within a month or two after that event, and quite frankly, I did the pretty house, the ugly house, and I did your MOS boot camp in Houston. And right after, within a few months, this is going to sound crazy. I went from being a dance instructor, thanks to you, to a real estate millionaire in that short of time. That year, 2002, life changing. No kidding.
So do you remember how many houses you acquired that year?
That year, I did about 24 deals.
Nice. Okay. So it didn't take you more than a month or two.
That's right.
So you would confess that you probably came in with somewhat of a high degree of self-confidence and a lot of yes or no? Yes or no?
You know what? I'd say not really, no. But hanging around you and picking up things around the people that you were talking to and teaching, I absorbed a lot very quickly. Okay. I didn't have all the confidence in the world, but I absorbed it quickly. Had to.
By the way, all you listeners out there, if you go to your Gold Club site and you pull up the private lender website and punch on that video that we made to attract private lenders, you might recognize Tony's voice because he's the voice behind that video sales letter. All right, so Todd, you're a thinker brain now. How long did it take you to get your first deal done?
Honestly, it took me almost 30 days as well. I think it was like 28 days to get our first property under contract. And then it was about 15 days after that where we located the tenant buyer that was going to go into the property. And they had $15,000 that they were going to put down. And they were approved pretty much overnight when they told me they had $15,000 to put down. But for me, Ron, it was a little different for me. I didn't have a day job at the time, so the 30 days went by extremely slow. I spent the first 20, 30 days pretty much working on myself, working on my psyche because I was a thinker brain. I was practicing with the scripts. I had a lot of work to do on Todd to get my first property under contract, and I knew it was going to take a lot of work. Thankfully, I had the time to do it. So some people might think 30 days is kind of fast. I thought it was extremely slow because of the amount of time that I put in, correcting myself.
Yeah. Well, what you did back then, inadvertently, not even knowing it, is kind of what we're helping our students do today, and that's practice before they get on the telephone and fix how the stupid stuff they say on the phone so they can actually get sellers to say yes. So what did Alicia think back then when you didn't have a job and 30 days went by? And was she for you or in you?
Well, she was extremely supportive. I'm really blessed to have a supportive wife. It got hard. I'm not going to lie. I mean, we had a little bit of a nest egg in the bank when I had quit my job, and like I said, it was about 6 months prior to meeting you. But we burned through that nest egg pretty quickly because we kept spending like we had two incomes. And by the time we came around and met you, we were pretty much broke, living off of credit cards. And that's when the support, waned a little bit, right? I mean, she never really came out and said it, but you could tell that it was stressful on her. And so she was very supportive. And thankfully we were able to get through it.
So you're married to a woman. There's certainly no surprise when the money stops coming in that she was a little bit doubtful. So I get that. Yeah, I get that. Well, back then, what do you think was the biggest roadblock you had to overcome? You probably just described it, and that was your ability to communicate with people.
It was in some way, shape, or form. The best way I can describe it and sum it up, Ron, is just fear. I mean, I was fearful of everything. I was fearful of picking up the phone, fearful of rejection, fearful of what are they going to say, fearful of looking stupid. And I had really low self-esteem. I mean, in the corporate world, I had a pretty good job, but I always knew that I wanted out, and it took me 15 years to find the way out. And I think that really beat me up from a psyche standpoint. And so I had pretty low self-esteem coming into the business. So I had to get over that.
Right. And you didn't have the script you have today because they didn't exist.
Right.
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 Today it's easy, just reading a simple script. So you forced yourself to do it, even though you really didn't want to do it, till you got to the point to where there wasn't that big of a deal anymore.
Yeah, the big key for me was just taking action. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So Tony, what's the biggest hurdle you overcame when you first started?
Oh man, everything Todd said, and then some. Lack of knowledge. Even though I had some real estate experience, it was kind of superficial. So I really had to relearn everything, and had to relearn the concepts and the way that you teach it to really not have your own money or credit in the game. So I had to overcome how to do that stuff. And then once I started to get those concepts and then start to apply the scripts and the proper way of talking to people and getting out of my own way, because I like a lot of men, I guess we have this thing called testosterone, so we have to try and reinvent the wheel. Mm-hmm. So I was always trying to redo things my own way, and finally one day I just said, why am I just beating myself up here? Just let me stop doing all that and just follow the simple instructions, do it this way, and then later on I can tweak it if I want to, but let me start with something that's already working with people.
There's a thought.
And it's already proven. Yeah, guys. Yeah, there's a thought, exactly.
That is very hard for men to do, isn't it?
It is. It really is. Yeah, but also really had to work on improving my communication to the point where I wasn't talking too much or giving too much information, and I had to overcome a lot of obstacles there. And I'm to the point where now it's just like razor sharp and smooth because it's been honed to a fine point. So that has really helped a lot. The communication is everything. Because
no seller's going to ask you a question you don't know the answer to without even thinking about it, just simply because you practiced. You've been doing it a little while, so it doesn't bother you anymore. And in fact, I was the same way, when you know it or not. When I started, you couldn't shut me up. I just wanted to talk. I wanted to teach, and it took me a while to figure out they don't want to hear it. They just wanted me to buy their house and get the hell out of their house. So, man, it took you guys a short time. It took me a long time to figure out. I mean, like years, not months. So, look, you are both mentors, and you work with students regularly. That means you have a half an hour conversation with them every single week, and communication's in the middle. What do you see as the biggest mistakes that they are making when they first start? And I don't care who jumps in first.
I would have to say, if you don't mind, Todd, I would have to say everything that Todd and I have already gone through, everything that you've gone through, Ron, just fear, bad communication, getting out of your own way. People think that they have to know everything before they get started. You don't have to be great in order to get it going. You have to just get it going in order to be great. You got to start somewhere. Sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. And when you lean on the scripts and the systems that are provided in the mentor program, I mean, it's amazing. And you have a cheerleader, a success coach, someone to watch over your back. That really helps people to shorten their learning curve and bring about the chance of them having success a lot faster. So getting out of their own way and overcoming that fear, I would say, is the biggest thing. What do you think, Todd?
Well, okay. Do you have any, I mean, that's easy to say. Overcome your fear. Yeah, that's great. But how would you suggest one go about that?
Take action. Action cures fear.
In other words, make yourself do something positive every day toward getting on that phone and mastering that call?
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
I mean, both of you will agree that in the pretty house side of this business, if we don't master that phone, we're not going to get any checks. Agreed?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, that's not necessarily true in the ugly house side of the business, but even then, if we're buying properties from FSBOs, we still got to talk to the seller. So literally, it's nothing more than learning some simple communication techniques that will serve you for the rest of your life, regardless of how you're using them or applying them. So your biggest hurdle was mastering that phone, and you think that's the same hurdle that your students are experiencing, both of you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so they got the scripts. They got the scripts before they get to you. Todd, you tell me, is there anything that you can tell me that would that maybe you do that would help them overcome that fear of getting on that phone?
Yeah, to me, Ron, I tell all my students that preparation is the key. They have to practice the scripts. I learned this very early on. I mean, the scripts have been, there were scripts when I came into the business, but they're so much better now. And I spend just an inordinate amount of time, quite frankly, rehearsing those scripts and practicing them out loud. Now, I will say that I was too scared and embarrassed to role play, even with my mentor or my wife. I was concerned about what they would think. So I spent time reading the scripts out loud so my brain could hear the words coming out of my mouth. And an interesting thing would happen. My brain would say, you know what, Todd, that doesn't sound like you. That doesn't sound comfortable. Like, let's do it again. Do it again. And I did that over and over and over again. And Tony said something that I tell all of my students. A lot of times you really just have to fake it till you make it. But it takes practice to even fake it sometimes. So it's one thing to have a set of scripts in front of you, but if you haven't rehearsed it, just like an actor is not going to go out on screen without having rehearsed his lines, right? It's the same thing here. We have to rehearse. We have to be ready. We have to practice and know what we're going to say a lot of times. And that preparation, to me, took away. It didn't take away all the fear. I mean, there was always a component of it still there, as I'm sure you know, Ron, but it really helps dumb it down a little bit so that you can take some action. And then once you start taking the action, you realize, well, this isn't any big deal. The things you start to worry about, like the sellers maybe asking you a question that you don't know the answer to or sounding stupid, they don't materialize. And then that helps build confidence and it snowballs.
Well, let me tell you both what I teach people at the class. And actually, I follow up with the masters a month later, and we go through the same process again. And you need to know this because you'll know what they're told ahead of time. I tell them to go home and get a handful of property information sheets completed, usually by our virtual assistants, and put somebody across the table and make that call and let them assume that they're the seller, and program your seller to act like a real seller and come back with objections for you to answer, which are all right in the book and all right in front of you. And, of course, your scripts are right there as well, as simple as they are. And record those calls. And the only way you're ever going to get better at talking on the phone is if you record it and play it back to yourself, and then take the 10 mistakes people make on the phone right out of the manual and find out how much of those apply to you and write them down, and then go to work fixing them by practicing more and fixing them, and then play those calls back as well. And I also tell them, look, you got to call the no's. I hear too many people just calling the yeses. I ask them, how many leads you get this week? 3. What do you mean 3? How many leads did you get? A lead is a completed property information sheet. Well, I got 3 yeses. Oh, but I got 12 no's. Okay, well, a no is a lead. So a lead is a sheet, yes or no. You got to call the no's and use my no script and convert many of them to yeses. You guys would be amazed at how many of those no's were turning into yeses at our seminars, our boot camp, and our fast track, just by following that script. And the no script is going to take the longest for you to master, because you get the first paragraph, and then it asks them, basically, do they want to hear how you can help? And if they say yes, then you got to read the other 4 or 5 paragraphs. So it's going to take the longer. But until you get on the phone and practice and record it and play it back and fix it and do it again and fix it and do it again and fix it, you're not ready to talk to live sellers yet. And then I tell them, so you both know, when you get to the point to where you fix it the best you can fix it, then you record 2 live seller calls and you send it to your mentors, and they will listen to them and critique them.
Yeah.
And by the way, guys, I'm telling them you're only going to get 2 shots at it. So don't send your mentor calls when you already know what's wrong, and they'll just come back and tell you what you already know. So get to be the best you can be before you send it to your mentors. And by the time you do that exercise, if they'll do it, you're going to see how big of a difference you made in your own communication skills. And look, there's nothing the seller can ask you that both of you guys and all of my students have not been asked hundreds of times, and it's all the same stuff. There ain't nothing new. They don't have new questions. So once you figure out how to handle the questions that are right there that they ask you properly, then frankly, you're not afraid of the telephone anymore. But it's more than just reading the scripts. Got to be able to read the scripts with confidence. There needs to be confidence coming out of your voice, not begging. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they beg. And if you talk too much and you get off script, you're begging. I got to stop begging. You will never hear begging in your voice unless you play back that recording. So with confidence and with the assumption close, for example, for those of you listening that don't know what we're talking about when we say scripts, my $1 million script, when the seller says, yeah, I will consider taking a monthly payment until you pay me off in full, which is the question they're asked by the virtual assistant, that's a yes lead if they say yes. And your questions are very simple. If we can agree upon the terms, what's the least you could take? And then when they give you an answer, is that the best you can do? That's question 1. Question 2 is, we usually buy with nothing down, okay? And if they say no, well, then what's the least you could take down? That's question 2. Question 3 is, depending on whether they have a loan or not, what's the least you could take per month? And by the time we get through those 3 questions, the seller has made us an offer, and now we know whether to proceed to the appointment script or not. So how hard it is to remember to know those 3 questions. I mean, when we say scripts, there's 3 lousy questions. So that's an easy one. Of course, the no script is going to take a little longer. Well, on the other hand, once the seller finds out what you can do for them and why, it makes good sense for them, some of them, to convert to say yes. So I'm about done with my speech, guys. Hold on there. Don't fall asleep on me. So just think about this now. When a VA calls them up and asks them would they consider taking a monthly payment so we can pay them off, I mean, gosh, you're hitting them right between the eyes. It's a question they didn't expect. So human nature is just to come back and say, well, no, I won't do that. But after spending a couple of minutes on the phone with them and explaining them the benefits of doing so, many of them will turn around and say, yeah, well, I consider that. So it's very, very critical that A, you call all your leads, and B, you master these scripts before you start calling live sellers. You watch your production go through the roof. You know, I take Lynette with me wherever I go. She's out there. She makes tons of deals. And what's the difference between her calling and anybody else calling? Nothing. And besides, you know, she talks too much. Frankly, it wouldn't take long to get better than Lynette on the phone. But when you break it down to its simplest form, that's all it amounts to, is handling that phone call. So when you crack that code, the rest is easy. All right. So, guys, what's the biggest mistake that you made in the business so far, if you don't mind me asking? Start with you, Todd.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. I think the one thing that pops to mind, quite honestly, is just not automating fast enough. You harped on me for a couple of years, Ron, to really bring an acquisitionist on board to free up some of my time. And I think I felt like I still had to do everything in the beginning. I had to have my hand in everything. And it's only been the last couple of years that we've had help and we've given some of the day-to-day tasks off so that we can just make decisions in our business. And my goodness, has that made a huge impact, and not only in terms of the number of deals we're able to do, but the time that we get back.
Right. And you kind of don't have anything to do when you get up in the morning now, do you?
It's kind of nice, though.
Well, okay, that's good to know, because that's exactly what happens when you get an acquisitionist and get them trained.
Yeah.
You want to explain what an acquisitionist does, Todd?
They do everything that you taught us to do. I mean, my acquisitionist helps. They take the calls from the seller. They go through. They get the lead sheet. They will do the pre-screening. Some of them they will do the closing calls, set up the appointments, go out on the appointments, get the contract signs, and then the one thing in the business that that I'm really thankful that we've got somebody for is just handling all the buyer calls. There's just so many people that will call that we're not able to help, and she helps weed those people out, get the good people out to the property, and get the property sold. So really, everything that you've taught us to do, we've got somebody else trained to do.
So basically, they're just a replacement for you.
Yep.
And
and we make decisions.
And that's all you do. You decide who you want to buy from and who you want to sell to after
Correct.
the information is presented to you. So you just make decisions. Agreed.
Yep.
Tony, do you have an acquisitionist?
I presently am interviewing a couple people. I've had them before. They've moved away. They didn't work out. They crap out, whatever. But I'm presently interviewing a couple. I've been actually using a couple agents and just working things out with them in that capacity.
I'm working on training one myself right now, because boy, the difference between having an acquisitionist and not having one is probably double or triple the business you do on your own. And Todd, are you willing to share how you pay your acquisitionist with our listening audience? Yeah,
so we pay her an hourly wage, and then she also collects a 7% of the option deposit when we install a temp buyer in the property. So a small hourly wage plus a portion of each one of the deals. When we originally started, she was just getting an hourly wage, but then we wanted to give them incentive to really find the best buyer and have their income somewhat dependent on that. So we started bonusing her for finding people with the largest option deposit as opposed to just putting the first person in there.
And so you would certainly advise that we really shouldn't be looking for an acquisitionist until we can know the business well enough to actually train them and tell them what they need to do.
Yeah, it's very difficult to train an acquisitionist if you don't know what you're doing yourself. So, and I knew what I was doing before I brought one on. I dragged my feet for a couple of years in terms of getting one on board. So when you're ready, you'll know. Once you've done some deals, it's not hard to get somebody up to speed, but you also want to have confidence in what you're doing, and you want your acquisitionist to sense that you know what you're doing as well. Otherwise, it's just not going to work out.
Yeah, correct. Well, that's my advice as well. I think it's going to be hard to replace yourself and train something you don't even know yourself how to do. So do a few deals yourself, and then if you're ready to replace yourself, frankly, an acquisitions don't cost you anything. They actually make you money.
They really don't.
All right. So, guys, do you have any big, huge people just starting, and both of you are mentors? What's the most important thing that they should be focusing on when they're just cranking up their business?
Fail forward fast. Take action. Don't worry about screwing things up. You're definitely going to make mistakes. I mean, we all do. I think I wrote new books on making mistakes in glorious fashion. But
there's more volumes coming, Tony.
Amen.
You're not done yet.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so, I agree with that, Ron. I think you need to fail forward. I totally agree with that. Just take action. That's the biggest key. So you're always going to feel like you're not prepared, but take action anyway. Take those baby steps, and that'll help gain the confidence that you need to move forward.
That's right.
Let's discuss what action. First of all, you got to generate leads, because if you don't do that, nothing else matters. Our virtual assistants do that for you, even though I want you doing some on your own, sending it to them to call. So generating leads is easy. Real easy. It used to be hard, but it's easy today because it's done for you. And then you got to pick up phone, call those leads. And that's where a lot of people stop right there, scared to death of the telephone. And you got to master that phone call and make appointments and weed out the people you don't want to do business with quickly, which will be most of them, because most sellers are worthless and a waste of your time. That's why you can't spend much time with them. So getting them to ask a few questions will quickly determine whether you need to make an appointment. So generate the leads, call the leads, follow up and make a few appointments a month, and get a few contracts signed, starting with one. And both of these folks will tell you, and I'll tell you, there is really nothing else you need to do in your business except those things. Because if those things aren't done in the pretty house business, you have no business. So no sense in spending your life on the internet. No sense in spending your life trying to do all the stupid stuff that doesn't make any difference. If you're not doing what you need to do to get to that house and get a contract, all the rest of it's just a waste of time. Now, in the ugly house business, I can make offers through realtors, never have to talk to a human, and pay cash for the house, use private money most likely, and buy it and rehab it. Problem is, in today's market, very difficult to get these deals out of the MLS that make sense. Most people are overpaying, making stupid choices, and working for free because they haven't been trained. But even if I buy them through FSBOs, which is the way to go if you want to buy all cash deals today, I still have to learn to talk to people. So the reality is I've got to have the conversation with the seller, whether I'm after an all cash, low end, ugly house deal, or whether I'm a higher end, pretty house deal. So the ability to master that telephone is very, very important and critical, which is why we have a 3-day seminar on it called Mastering the Phone. That's the best that I could think of, and that's what we do, or 2-day actually, focus on. So, guys, both of you have been in our mentoring system quite a while. Both of you do a great job. We get great letters from our students from you. And both of you are going to be at our upcoming summit in Nashville at the end of January. And
can't wait.
I think we have 10 mentors coming to that, and I think we're training a couple of new ones. And, of course, we're going to be calling leads. I know at the last summit we did, we called hundreds of leads and did several $1 million worth of projected front-end profit just from taking that piece of paper called a property information sheet and making a phone call and weeding them in or out, and if they're in, getting to what terms they're willing to accept. So we're going to generate a lot of deals there, and you guys are going to help us make calls. So I'm looking forward to that. And if you're listening to this and you come to the summit, you better bring some leads. Of course, if you don't, you're going to hate yourself when you see all the deals we're doing for other people there. Now, if you are interested in learning about our mentoring program, there's a way you can do that. You can go to thementorpodcast.com/consult, thementorpodcast.com/consult, CONSULT, and fill out a little short application there, and our staff will get with you and give you all the skinny and the facts and the cost and the financing and the whole works and what it's involved. I will tell you that our mentoring service is literally the difference between success and failure with a lot of people we coach every single year and literally get you through your deals and by your side and talk to your sellers for you and be on the phone when you're in the house and whatever you need to get through the process and get checks. So guys, any last words of advice that you could give that we haven't already covered here? Put you on the
mentor program is the best investment you can make. That's my personal goal with my students. I'm sure Todd feels the same. I'm sure that all the rest of the mentors do as well. We make it our goal to make investing in the mentor program the best investment you'll ever make in yourself and your time with your finances, because we want to get you multiple returns back on what you're doing with your business and your life. So
I think the best, Ron, I think the best advice that I can give somebody new coming into the business is give yourself time to learn the process and to move forward. I see a lot of students that come in that they think that they're going to get their first deal, in the first night, and then when it doesn't happen, everything just kind of compounds from there. You said it earlier that a lot of sellers are just going to tell you no, and that's one of the things that I think a lot of students just really have to understand is you're going to hear no a lot, and that's okay. It's a numbers game, and treat it that way. We're looking for the sellers that want to deal with us. Expect that a lot of sellers are going to say no, but keep moving forward, keep taking action, and you'll have success.
Correct. And no is just a way to get off the phone until the time is right for them to say yes. And
that's true.
All your follow-up systems are in place, and all of that is already in place for you if you come to Planet Ron. So, by the way, if you haven't registered for the summit yet, we still have a few seats left. You can do that at RES 2019, and join all our other mentors at the end of January in Nashville. So, guys, I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule today to spend with our folks, and I know they enjoyed our conversation. And I hope if you're listening, we'll see all of you soon in one of our live events, and you can meet these guys personally. So thank you very much. All right.
Yep.
Yes. Come say hello. Deal room.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you, Ron.
That's all for this edition of the Mentor Podcast. To connect with Ron and learn how you can attain financial freedom, as well as up-to-date strategies to grow and protect your wealth based on today's discussion, go to www.connectwiththementor.com.